Hello! In this video, I'm going to cover one of Junji Ito's most famous and creepiest manga, Tomie. Before we start, let me tell you that this manga has a total of 20 chapters, so I'll be covering it in small parts. Now, let's begin. The story starts with the funeral of a girl named Tomie, whose body was found in pieces scattered in different places. Some parts are still missing, and no one knows who did this. Tomie's friend tells the police that they both left together after a field trip but went to different places. In the end, Tomie headed home, and they didn't see anything suspicious on the way. The scene shifts to school, where the teachers are talking about Tomie, but her friends are thinking about her boyfriend, Yamamoto. The teacher warns the other girls to stay safe because the psychopath responsible might still be out there. But suddenly, Tomie walks into the class, leaving everyone shocked. The students start calling her a zombie. Meanwhile, Tomie's teacher approaches her and asks who she really is. But instead of answering, Tomie hugs him and says that they will get married after graduation. The entire class is in shock. How is Tomie still alive? What is really going on? Just then, it is discovered that their teacher was found unconscious. When the doctor learns about it, he is also shocked. How is Tomie alive when she has already been buried? Meanwhile, Tomie is forcibly clinging to Yamamoto, but he keeps avoiding her. In fact, everyone except her friend is avoiding her. Then, Tomie starts looking under a bridge for some reason, which makes Reiko panic. She runs away, and soon after, she also starts calling Tomie a ghost. Reiko meets Yamamoto, and they talk about how they need to surrender to escape from Tomie. The scene then shifts to the day Tomie died. The whole class had gone hiking in the mountains. During recess, while the other students were playing games, Tomie was sitting on a cliff with their teacher, Takaki. She asks him, "When are we going to get married?" and tells him to leave his wife. She even claims that she is pregnant. Just then, Yamamoto arrives and overhears everything. He starts arguing with Tomie, but during the fight, she accidentally falls off the cliff. When they check on her, they realize she is dead. Yamamoto goes to call an ambulance, but Takaki stops him, saying that he doesn't need to ruin his life because of Tomie. The entire class agrees with him. Then, all the boys take off their shirts and start cutting young Tomie's body. But suddenly, Tomie moves, and they realize that she is still alive. However, they continue cutting her while she is still alive. They dismember her body into a total of 42 pieces, one for each student. Takaki then gives each of them a piece and tells them to dispose of it in different places. Reiko receives Tomie's heart, which she throws into the water under a bridge. This is why she was so terrified. When Tomie looked down from the bridge, Yamamoto and Reiko were running away from their classmates, trying to escape. Their classmates had found out that they were planning to tell the police everything. Eventually, they catch up to them, and just as one of them is about to kill them, Yamamoto pushes him down, and they start running again. However, Reiko injures her knee and is forced to stop. Suddenly, Tomie appears out of nowhere. Seeing her, everyone is terrified and flees the scene. But Yamamoto stays behind. Later, he is found to be mentally ill, just like their teacher, Takagi. After this incident, Reiko's family moves away, and the rest of their classmates drop out of school. Two of them even commit suicide. For Reiko, that field trip has become nothing but a nightmare, a mass delusion, because otherwise, there is no explanation for Tomie being alive. But then, Reiko finds the same wrapper on the beach, the one she had used to wrap Tomie's heart before throwing it away. It seems that Tomie has found me again. The chapter begins with Takagi, Tomie's teacher, escaping from the hospital. In the last chapter, we saw that he had become mentally disturbed. After this, the doctors discussed Tomie's death, how her body was dismembered into multiple pieces. They suspect that Takagi might be the one who killed Tomie because he claims to have seen her ghost. They also recall how Tomie mysteriously returned to school the very next day after her funeral. The doctors decide to find Takagi as soon as possible. Then, we see a girl named Yukiko Mio, who is admitted to the hospital. Her friend Tadashi comes to visit her, and Yukiko gives him her apple since she is on a strict medical diet. She tells him that her only chance of survival is a kidney transplant, Without it, she has no hope of living. Tadashi, feeling emotional, tells her that if his blood type matched, he would have given her one of his kidneys. Then, suddenly remembering something urgent, he leaves. But when Yukiko looks out of the window, she sees Tadashi with another girl, a beautiful one. 2 days later, the same girl visits Yukiko. She introduces herself as Reiko Mizutani and directly tells Yukiko to stay away from Tadashi. Yukiko, shocked and furious, starts yelling at Reiko. But Reiko humiliates her, saying that she doesn't look good enough. She mockingly asks Yukiko if she really thinks she can compete with her. Yukiko, overwhelmed with anger, tells her to leave, but Reiko refuses. Instead, she coldly tells Yukiko that Tadashi is tired of her because she is too dependent on him. Then, with a cruel smile, Reiko delivers the final blow. Tadashi told me that he will feel so relieved when you finally die. Yukiko refuses to believe her. But Reiko keeps smirking and asks her, "How can you not see your dark side?" Yukiko gets angry and throws a teddy bear at Reiko. Reiko dodges it, but the incident infuriates her. Just then, a nurse enters the room and forces Reiko to leave. Later, when Tadashi visits Yukiko again, she tells him about Reiko's visit. She reveals how Reiko told her about their relationship and then coldly tells Tadashi that he doesn't need to visit her anymore. Goodbye. One night, Yukiko's condition worsens. It progresses into uremia, a serious disease where both kidneys fail, preventing the blood from filtering waste. The doctors prepare her for dialysis treatment, but Yukiko refuses. She says, "There's no need to do anything now. I'm ready to die." However, the doctors urge her not to lose hope. Meanwhile, we see Reiko and Tadashi on a date, but Tadashi seems uneasy. Tadashi asks, "I heard you visited Yukiko?" Reiko nods and replies, "Yes, she's a really nice girl. She told me a lot about herself, and she even found a doctor she likes." Tadashi frowns. "Why do you talk like that?" It seems like Reiko always says the same limited things. Every time he asks her about her past, her name, or her school, the details change. He realizes that he knows nothing real about her. But he does know Yukiko, and she's nothing like how Reiko described her. However, Reiko seems distracted and suddenly tells Tadashi to buy her earrings. Tadashi refuses, saying, "I've already borrowed too much money from my parents. I'm just a student, not a bank." Reiko shrugs and walks away, saying, "I'll just ask someone rich to buy them for me." When Tadashi calls out to her, she suddenly changes her name, pretending not to recognize the one he used. Tadashi first met Reiko at the beach, and ever since then, he has felt a strange, uncontrollable urge whenever he's around her. His mind keeps flashing back to an incident from 2 years ago, a newspaper article about a murder victim who looked exactly like Reiko, even having the same mole. Maybe that's what drew him to her in the first place. Maybe that's why he became so obsessed with her. But now he has made up his mind. He will stop seeing Reiko and apologize to Yukiko. Just then, Reiko suddenly appears out of nowhere, startling him. With a mischievous grin, she says, "Relax, I was just kidding." She didn't care about the earrings. Tadashi was important to her. They both stood there in silence, but suddenly, Tadashi pulled out a small knife and stabbed Reiko. Her condition became horrible, but before Tadashi could do anything else, the police caught him. During his interrogation, Tadashi confessed that he didn't know why he killed Reiko. He just wanted to take her apart. But before he could cut her up, the police arrived. The scene shifts to the hospital, where a doctor informs the police about a patient in need of a kidney transplant. The doctor explains that the victim's blood matches the patient, and asks if they can use the kidney. However, the police officer responds that it would be difficult to proceed without the consent of a family member. Just then, a mysterious man appears, claiming to be Reiko's father and calling her Hanako. He introduces himself as Takagi. Before the doctor can even ask, Takagi grants permission to use the kidney for the transplant. But soon after, the man disappears. Still, the doctors proceed with the operation, and although many things remained unsolved, the case was closed and Yukiko's surgery was successful. A few days later, a nurse checks on Yukiko and tells her, You were really lucky to find a donor at the last moment. Yukiko asks, "Can you tell me about the donor? I want to thank them." But then, something strange happens. For several days, Yukiko stops eating because her stomach always feels full, even without food. Not only that, but something inside her is growing. Suddenly, a sharp pain erupts in her stomach. When the doctors take an X-ray, they discover something horrifying. The kidney she received is growing limbs, with one part extending all the way to her stomach. Upon closer inspection, they see something even more shocking, a human skull. The doctors are stunned. How is this even possible? They decide to perform an emergency surgery to remove whatever is growing inside her. But when they cut open her stomach, they are met with pure horror. A human head suddenly emerges from her body on its own. And with that, Tomie Chapter 2 comes to an end. The deeper meaning behind the story. When Tomie was dying, no one stood by her side. Instead, all the girls sided with Yamamoto. Why? Because Tomie was beautiful, and all the other girls were jealous of her. Junji Ito brilliantly portrays how far jealousy can push people. And if you notice, each time Tomie returns, she becomes even more beautiful. That's her greatest weapon, the ultimate bait to trap men. The next part will be coming soon. Junji Ito's stories are always interesting and creepy, and just look at the art. It adds a whole new horror element to the story. If you want to see more of Junji Ito's stories, then subscribe to our channel, Midnight Manga. We also have many other interesting videos on the channel, so don't forget to check them out. Thank you.